Thank you for joining us for the Whole Health series. I'm Whitney Ortiz, founder of Whole Health Self-Care. This series convenes women leaders from around the world who share tips, tools, and strategies to help today's women professionals feel better, enjoy a better quality of life, and have enhanced capacity to be able to lead with compassion, both at work and at home. I'm so thrilled to have with us Alice Finn. Alice is a wealth management expert and the CEO of Powerhouse Assets, a firm she founded to help women become more engaged in their important financial futures. Her book, Smart Women Love Money: 5 Simple Life-Changing Rules of Investing, has been featured by Oprah.com, and The Motley Fool named it in 2020 one of 3 books, along with the founder of Vanguard's book, that women and men should read to get educated about investing. Ms. Finn has been named many times as one of the top 100 wealth and financial advisors in the United States. Thank you so much, Alice, for sharing your expertise here with us.
I'm delighted to be here.
I thought we could start our conversation by talking about the emotion that is often associated with money. And not just women, but there is a lot of emotion that women put into how they use money, how they bring money into their life, how they manage it, etc. So if you could highlight a bit about your experiences working with and for many women around the world on that note.
So women don't, in my mind, focus enough on getting their money working for them. Somehow I feel like we have a blind spot in this regard. So this is my contribution to feminism, to get women to focus on their own investing. Because if you get your money working for you, it's not about accumulating things. It's about having opportunities and choices for the rest of your life to spend your time in ways that you find most valuable, whether that's with the people in your life, or whether that's on a company that you believe in, or a mission that you want to pursue. So I just want women to have as many opportunities and choices as they can, and getting your money working for you is really important in that regard.
And I think in this time of the pandemic, many have reconsidered or thought about more like, how are they really putting their money to use? How are they really spending their money? And is it on things and on people who, is it meaningful to them and for what they stand for? Have you been seeing shifts happen?
So yes, that's absolutely, on the spending side of it, that's absolutely true. That I think there's so much disruption going on, a lot of it negative, but some of it very positive, people reevaluating how they're living their lives. And I know that rather than going to a gym, because I can't, I've started running and swimming more. I live near Walden Pond, so I just really appreciate being able to go for a long swim there in the morning in a way that I appreciated in the past, but now I really appreciate it. So I think we're learning to take things that we took for granted, we're learning to appreciate them more, I think, in this environment. And so when it comes to how you're spending your money, it's important to evaluate that. But what I'm really focused on is how to grow your assets, so that for your hard-earned assets, either that you've made yourself, you've earned yourself, that you need to get that money working for you to sort of reward yourself for all that hard work. And if you've inherited assets, you also want to make sure that it's working hard for you, so that the people or person that you inherited it from, their efforts will be valued as well.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot on the perspective. And in terms of your swimming, I've heard you refer to money like water. What is the connotation that you share with us?
So there's a woman named Liz Pearl, and when I read what she wrote, it really resonated with me. Women tend to think of money like a lake, that it's sort of a set, stagnant pool of assets, and that if they spend it, there's just less there. And I think, I'm stereotyping, of course, it's not every woman feels like this, and not every man feels like what I'm about to say. Is I think overall men more see it like a river, that it's flowing, that they're going to be making more money so they can spend it, and it will keep flowing, and they can take out what they need, and the money will keep flowing. I think it's healthier to, if you can, get your money working for you, so that you can also see it like a river that's flowing. Because then every decision about how you're spending your money isn't so fraught that it's just going to be a diminishing pool. It's that it will be replenished over time, and it's a matter of how much you can take out while the river is flowing. So I really like that analogy, and I appreciate Liz Pearl for having articulated that to start.
And that's great advice for all of us to be thinking about in terms of when we're really looking at what decisions that we can make now for investing and saving, and to have greater control over our finances at home and at work. Because many of the listeners are founders of large organizations and businesses and firms. So when they're applying these principles in their personal and business life, it's that whole perspective. And you have so much rich information through your book. If you could highlight some of the key points, some of those 5 principles that we should all really, take home.
Right. So my goal again is for women to, and men, but just felt like women weren't focusing enough on their investing. So my goal is to make it not feel so overwhelming, and to give women what I call investment self-confidence, because I think it's sort of counterproductive what Wall Street does. They, in general, again, I'm stereotyping a little bit, but I believe this, in general, Wall Street wants you to make you think that the more complicated approach to investing is the better approach. And so they make it sound very complicated, and a lot of times you don't even understand what they're doing for you. And then they feel like they can charge you high fees because it's so complicated. And, if it's complicated, it must be expensive. And so then they feel like they can justify what they're doing. I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to say, actually, the more complicated it is, probably the less well you're investing. I do not believe investing needs to be complicated. So I've boiled it down to 5 rules. And I really believe that if you know these 5 rules and use them as your foundation or touchstone for thinking about how you're investing, that you will actually know more than most of the people in our country about how to invest, and it will keep you focused on what's really important. So I'm happy to go through the 5 rules now, if that would be helpful.
Phenomenal, because they're also applicable no matter the location, especially to women in the U.S., but not necessarily. It is so widely applicable. Please do.
Actually, it's completely applicable worldwide, really, for people that are trying to get money working for them. So rule number 1 is invest in stocks for the long run. That's really where it's at. If you look at the returns in the stock market, both in the U.S. and worldwide, compared to the fixed income returns, it's just dramatically different. So I might not have the numbers exactly right because they're not right in front of me, but if your great-grandmother had invested $1 in 1926, so before the Great Depression, and looked at it around today, if she invested in U.S. large company stocks, that $1 would have grown to over $7,000. And if she'd invested in U.S. small company stocks, so still stocks that we would have heard of, like Peet's Coffee or something like that, but not mega cap stocks like Amazon, that $1 would have grown to over $22,000 today. And yes, it would have been, a zig and zag line, but the trend is up. And what I like to tell people is, I run these things called powerhouses where I get women together with their peers and we talk about investing. And I always ask people, when you're buying a stock, what are you actually investing in? And I get lots of good answers, but my answer to that is you're investing in people's productivity and innovation. That's what you're investing in. They're creating a company because they believe in what they're doing, and they're going to be productive and innovative. And I want to invest with people that are going to create, kind of use their productivity and their innovation to create a company. And I believe that will continue. Even in this COVID horrible environment they're in, people are being innovative and productive, and there's new ways of doing things all the time and new companies that are doing really well. I understand that a lot of companies are doing horribly, but there's a lot of productivity and innovation going on even today. That's rule number 1. Invest in stocks for the long run. It's probably the most important rule to give you perspective. The second one is your asset allocation is your most important decision. That's like what percent you're going to put in stocks versus bonds. And then within stocks, what percent in different categories of stocks, US versus international, large versus small, value stocks versus growth stocks. That's your most important investment decision, not whether you buy Google or Apple. Not what individual stocks you buy. So individual stocks can actually be a really time-consuming thing to do. I don't believe that that's the most important decision. The most important decision is your asset allocation decision. So second rule is allocate your assets. Third rule is invest in index funds. So once you decide your asset allocation, I want you to use index funds to implement your asset allocation. So implement with index funds is the third rule. Index funds are like a basket of stocks that cover the whole category that you're investing in. So for example, in US large company stocks, the S&P 500, that is 500 stocks in one basket. If you buy that, that represents about 80% of the value of the US stock market. So I think you should buy that, and you can buy it with one trade, and it costs basically nothing to buy and basically nothing to own, and you're owning 80% of the US stock market value. And for every category that I mentioned in your asset allocation, there are index funds that target that category. So implement with index funds as opposed to trying to pick individual stocks, or as opposed to trying to find an active manager. There's this thing called the active versus passive debate. Do you want to pay someone to pick individual stocks to try and outperform the index, or you just want to buy the index? I say just buy the index. Okay, so rule number 1, invest in stocks for the long run. Rule number 2, your asset allocation is your most important decision. Allocate your assets. Rule number 3 is implement with index funds. Rule number 4 is rebalance regularly. So once you have your asset allocation and you have a portfolio of index funds, at least once a year, I usually do it in November because I'm starting to plan for taxes and just making sure that my clients don't pay too much in taxes. You're going to rebalance your portfolio. And what that you're going to do is you're going to see what your target asset allocation was. And if something has gone up more than other things, you're going to sell some of that and get it back to the target. So this is the best way that I know how to sell high and buy low. Right? Because so for example, right now during this COVID environment, the S&P 500 has done amazingly well given the circumstances. And it's far outperformed other things like US small company stocks or international stocks. So when I'm rebalancing coming up, I'm going to be probably selling some of the S&P 500 and buying some of those stocks that have underperformed. The S&P 500 actually, including dividends at this point, is up this year, up at 2 or 3% already. And other stocks are still down double digits. I think the average stock in the S&P 500, or small company stocks and international stocks, are still down to like 11%. So it's time to rebalance. Mm-hmm. And then the final rule is keep your fees low. Most people don't even know what they're paying in fees. So first of all, you want to find out what you're paying in fees, and you want to make sure your fees are low, because this is the scary part. Too many people over time lose half their net worth to fees and don't even know it.
Wow.
It's very scary. And so it's sort of like negative compounding. The reason why investing is so amazing is because you're getting the magic of compounding, the compound returns working for you. So on average, the S&P 500 has gone up about 10% a year. That's amazing. And that's working to your advantage. That's why $1 invested turns into, over $7,000. But if you're paying too much in fees, so I'd say on average, you should be paying less than 1.5% in fees, and my clients end up paying less than 1% overall in fees. So if you can keep your fees down, then you're going to get that compounding working for you in the right direction, rather than a drain happening all the time with the money you're earning going into fees. Some people are paying 3% in fees because they're investing in hedge funds or annuities or things that are very pricey, that I really don't recommend in general, because fees are really an insidious way to lose money. And people don't even ask the right questions. They don't know what fees they're actually paying. So, and I'll just say one more thing. So those are the 5 rules. I'll go through them one more time, and then I'm going to say that I'm actually going to offer people a list of questions to ask your financial advisor. And it will include how to ask to make sure that you know all the fees that you're paying. Because sometimes financial advisors or other people you're asking won't tell you all the fees. So there's certain words to ask so that you actually get an answer that is comprehensive. So you know all the fees you're paying. So can I summarize the 5 rules? Is that?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, so rule number 1 is invest in stocks for the long run. Get that money working for you. Get that magic of compounding working. Get that innovation and productivity working for you. Rule number 2 is your asset allocation. What percent in stocks versus fixed income? And fixed income is bonds and cash. And then within stocks, what percent in different categories? That's the most important strategic decision you're going to make. Make sure you get that right and focus on that. Don't focus on individual stocks. That can be entertaining. I myself have an entertainment account with individual stocks, but that's all it is. It's entertainment. It's not how I invest the vast majority of my portfolio. Then once you have your asset allocation, implement with index funds. That's the best way to keep fees low and to match the market. most active managers underperform the market. And in large part, that's because they're charging fees that they have to overcome, and it's very hard for them to overcome it. Never mind the tax consequences of that. So that's rule number 3, implement with index funds. Rule number 4, rebalance regularly. And rule number 5, keep the fees low, because you don't want to lose over time half your net worth to fees.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 rules.
Tremendous. So much great guidance, and it gives us all a lot to go to after this interview and really focus and do the research. And thank you for offering that gift that you're putting out there, because as you say, you want to make it easier, because it can be very overwhelming for those who are new to this.
Right.
And those who think that they have been doing pretty well and then realize, oh, I don't really know all of the fees. And what really is happening behind the scenes? What is my best position right now at this stage of my life? And how often am I rebalancing, etc. So thank you very much for all of that. And if women who are listening want to get in touch with you or have the advice of you and your firm, how can they go about doing that?
Okay, so they can go to powerhouseassets.com, and actually there's a page in there called Getting Started, and you will be given 3 choices. One is to sign up for a powerhouse, so you can, well actually, we used to do these in person, now we're doing a lot of Zoom ones. Actually, I was doing Zoom before COVID hit. Like, people would read my book in Hawaii, and I wasn't going to Hawaii anytime soon, so we would do a Zoom powerhouse. But we're doing it now anyway because of people having to isolate. So you can sign up for a powerhouse, or you can get a copy of the book. And actually, here's the book. It's called Smart Women Love Money: 5 Simple Life-Changing Rules of Investing. Or if you'd like, you could actually sign up for a consultation with our firm, and we're happy to talk to people and point them in the right direction, whether it makes sense for them to work with us, or we can give them advice on how to do it on their own, because a lot of people really can, if they read the book, they can get started on their own. So we're happy to help in that regard too.
There are tremendous guides, charts, tips, and tools throughout the book. It's really a wonderful gift to all of us out there who are looking for more really detailed information that is written with our interests in mind. So thank you so much for all of that and all of the tremendous work that you do. And just to close, if you have any final thoughts, otherwise.
Well, again, as I said, this is my way to pay it forward, right? So many people have helped me in my life, and I love what I do. I'm sort of an investment geek, but I also really like working with my clients. I really get to know them well. And I sort of joke and say I get to know them better than their doctor, because their doctor doesn't have time to spend with them. I've got time to spend with my clients to really get to know what their hopes and dreams are, and how their assets, their money can be working for them, so that they, in the future, again, will have those opportunities and choices that will give them the power to do what they want with their lives. So that's my goal, is to really help women get their money working for them. It's a very powerful aspect of life. So it's my contribution to feminism and my way to pay it forward.
Thank you. And financial help is a big component of Whole Health. So we're so grateful that you have contributed through this Whole Health series. Thank you very much.
I'm happy to be part of it. Thank you.